Good morning. My name is Mark Switcher, and I'm Human Resource Counsel at CBIA, and I'll be hosting today's webinar on the topic of the Telework Solution. I'm pleased to have working with our presenter today on this topic. It's an interesting topic that often comes up in conversations I have with member companies of CBIA, looking for variations on the more traditional work setting and work relationships to accommodate today's workforce and today's economy. For those of you from outside of Connecticut or might not be familiar with CBIA, we are the state's largest employer association, and we offer services to member companies in a wide range of areas, including consulting and education on human resource, safety, and business management issues, such as the topic we're speaking about today. And we also provide representation in Hartford at the state capitol, lobbying public officials to promote a strong business and job growth climate in the state. And our third line of business is we have a large group insurance program that we've successfully administered since 1995 that is essentially a private exchange similar to the state exchange that has been very much in the news with the Affordable Care Act. A bit of housekeeping for today's webinar. The format of the presentation will be a slide presentation on your computer screen with voiceover commentary from our presenter. We also have the capacity for real-time question and answer using the dialog box on the right-hand side of your screen. There are two boxes, one for administrative matters, which if you look up in the top right-hand corner, it says chat. That would be if you're having any difficulty with a connection or some type of electronic or connective matter. And then the Q&A box, and that is the box in the top right and also in the bottom right of the screen. That'll open up as a dialog box where you can pose a question to the presenter. We have quite a few slides to go through. I don't think it'll take the full hour. So if you do have questions, please type them in when you think of them. We may not touch on it immediately because it may be something that we will be coming to later in the presentation, but we should have more than enough time to cover any questions that people have, and may do it in real time or slightly delayed with a few minutes. But we do invite participants to pose questions that they may have as we go along. The presentation this morning is being recorded on CBI's website, and we will be sending out links to attendees so that they can access the presentation and the slide content at a later time if you wish. And the presenter's information will be posted at the end of the slide presentation as well if you wish to follow up further. Pleased to be working with our presenter this morning, Patrice DiFilippo. I've worked with Patrice in the past on this topic, and she and her organization, Telework Connecticut Rides, brings a great depth of experience working on this subject for a long period of time. Patrice has been advising Connecticut organizations on the subject of telework and best practices for over a decade. Prior to that, Patrice has held management positions in both the private and nonprofit sector, with particular emphasis on the technology sector, obviously leaders in mobile work styles. So very good background to bring for this, and we'll dive in right now. Patrice, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mark, and good morning, everyone. I'd like to start today by thanking our friends at CBIA for hosting today's webinar, and for the audience for taking the time to listen in. And I certainly do hope you're getting the benefit of working from home today, maybe sitting there with a cup of coffee, fuzzy slippers, something like that. So as we saw from last weekend's storms, the whole northeast corridor and down into the mid-Atlantic was struck by storms. We saw things, El Nino's bringing us some strange weather patterns these days. Tornadoes down as far as Florida during January. So as we can see from that, business can easily be disrupted by the impact of weather-related issues. Couple that with traffic delays and other unplanned for events, and teleworking really can provide solutions for these problems. So my goal today is to discuss best practices associated with creating and managing a telework program for your qualified employees and how we can help in that process. Telework is just one aspect of the CTrides program, which is sponsored by the Connecticut Department of Transportation. The ultimate goal of the program is to promote telework as a flexible work option, reducing traffic congestion, air pollution, and increasing business competitiveness, making Connecticut a better place to live and work. CTrides also offers solutions for carpools, van pools, buses, trains, biking, even walking, and all the Connecticut ride services are free to employers and employees in the state who are planning their commute. So what is it? Well, teleworking is working from home or an approved remote location, replacing the need for unnecessary travel. It may be offered as a flexible work option and should have management approval. The use of today's technology makes the process seamless. And we're really fortunate here in Connecticut that we have robust networks to support remote work. That was not always the case. When I started with the program a decade or so ago, half of the questions that we got, or maybe more than half of the questions that we got, were technology driven. Can I dial in from this location? Would I be able to get uninterrupted service from home? We don't have that issue anymore in Connecticut. That really has, the infrastructure is very, very good for us. So what is it not? Or I'm sorry, what is teleworking? I'm ahead of myself on my paging here. Teleworking is working from home or an approved remote location, primarily replacing the need for unnecessary travel. What isn't it? Most programs we see include a mix of part and full-time, but regularly scheduled telework, as well as some provisions for ad hoc, special circumstances situations. That being said, it is not daycare. Provisions should be made by the employees for dependent care to minimize distractions. Communication protocols should be established by the employer, providing for regular check-ins and collaboration when needed, as well as adhering to normal work hours. Working from home does not mean that an employee is available 24/7. It also does not have to be expensive. Most programs have a minimal startup cost. And in fact, we can really demonstrate to your organization through the better use of real estate and parking, and coupled with enhanced productivity, we can give you some cost-saving statistics and show you how we can make that work for you. We are often asked who teleworks. And the answer is pretty simple. It's really any job that has portable tasks, those that can be done as well remotely as in an office setting. Some examples of it are things like IT specialists, people who write, could be HR people, researchers, basically knowledge workers, which we have an abundance of here in the state of Connecticut. I've worked with organizations who've deployed graphic designers, a perfect application for it. Certainly marketing, customer service, people who are geared to working primarily with a computer and a phone. And certainly me, I work from home almost exclusively. And I've been doing it for many years. So telework has a wide appeal across the generation. Traditionalists and baby boomers with a wealth of knowledge and experience bring great value to their companies. And they want to continue working, but may not desire, or in some cases may not be able to make long commutes every day. As well as the Gen X, Gen Ys, who grew up working in remote or collaborative settings. Often on college campus, their expectations is such that remote work fits into their work style. So Fortune 100 did some surveys, and they show that today more than 85% offer telework, and that's within the 100 best companies to work for in some form. That's a huge jump in recent years, and much of it is due to the fact that technology has really made it easy to become an enabler. So how can teleworking work for your organization? Well, one of the first things we talk about is increased productivity through business continuity. Teleworkers and their managers report that workers get more done when working from home. There's less disruption due to inclement weather or other situations that may keep employees out of the office. There's clear evidence that the number of sick and personal days are reduced by employees that telework. Then there's employee retention and recruitment. Teleworking really does help attract the best candidates and retain top talent and decrease turnover, as well as giving organizations the ability to attract a wider range of workers by increasing the geographic pool. We've all seen recently that the unemployment rate is going down. And there's going to be a more competitive hiring environment. Certainly, having teleworking working for your organization gives you that ability to be more competitive and be more flexible in your hiring practices. And then certainly reduced overhead and cost containment and space needs. Teleworking has potential for shared workspace, reduces the need for parking, and alleviates the need for office expansion as your workforce may grow. Working with a number of organizations currently, that's exactly where they're heading. They're hiring or they're starting to hire. They know they're going to need to hire. They don't want to have the added expense of additional workspace, so they're taking some of their existing employees, allowing them to telecommute part and full-time, and they're hiring with telecommuting in mind for their new employees. This can save businesses costs and space. Organizations have reported up to a 30% reduction in overhead by allowing employees to telework. And certainly reduced traffic conditions. And well, we all know about that and the disruption it can bring through lost time, coupled with the added stress of being late for work, important meetings, etc. So what's the benefit to the employees? Well, certainly let's start with improved work-life balance. Telecommuters spend more time with family, less time on the road. They have more free time to pursue personal interests, exercise and cook healthy meals. And we found with that comes increased job satisfaction and morale. There's also clear evidence of teleworkers being healthier by not being exposed to office illnesses. And a healthier lifestyle benefits both the employer and the employees. They also save on fuel costs, wear and tear on their cars, even clothing. Less cleaning bills, less need for additional laundry services, etc. They're more productive. They produce better quality work. They work in a quieter environment with minimal interruptions and have an increased ability to focus on a specific work task. They also are aware that they are benefiting the environment through less emissions. And that's a feel-good for people. We hear that often from employees who are telecommuting. So statistics show, this is kind of interesting, behind the wheel versus the desktop deck, Connecticut commuters average 30 miles a day. Well, our people put this together, and it comes down to about 150 miles a week, 30,000 miles annually, and in a few short years, you could be driving to the moon. So, you figure it out. What's the better thing to do? Less time behind the keyboard, more time behind the wheel. You figure, which one would you rather do? I think I'd rather be behind the keyboard myself. So I'm often asked, this is a common question, what type of companies allow teleworking? And the answer is really across the board. And it's anything from manufacturing to service organizations, private businesses, as well as nonprofits, public utilities, and government agencies. They've all seen the benefit of keeping their critical areas such as customer service, IT, finance, functioning in inclement weather or other extreme circumstances, which brings really untold good to the clients they serve, as well as the economic benefit of the organization. So here's just a few of the companies in Connecticut that we've worked for. And some of them are national organizations and some are local here in Connecticut. You can see the geography is pretty well spread out. But nationally, you have things like, as a matter of fact, I saw it come up on my Google Alerts this morning, Flex Jobs, which is a job board for people who are looking for remote or freelance jobs. They posted that there's been a tremendous increase in the amount of available remote or teleworking jobs that have been posted on their site this year. And they listed the top 100 people such as Aetna, United Healthcare, Amazon, American Express, Pitney Bowes based right here in Connecticut, IBM, Bank of America. So it's a wide range of organizations, and it really is not dependent on the industry. It can be applicable to anyone. So today, we're endeavoring to give you a little bit of insight into what is really a pretty big subject. But the bottom line is it's really all about defining the right jobs, the individuals, the site, and the technology. And that's really where we can help. Our no-charge consulting services are offered to employers in Connecticut for a team of local and national experts in the fields of human resource management, voice and data technology. The types of things that we can do for you are helping you make the business case. Start by looking at the overall company culture and then determine the critical needs such as retention, recruitment, office space, overhead costs, and certainly all from business from business continuity, as we spoke of. Things such as policy development and an agreement with the employee, which is an essential component for successful management. Many people, many organizations find that freelance remote work is not the best group, but having policies and having an agreement between the employee and the employer benefits everyone, and we can make that process simple for you. Our technology assessments are a plan that spells out what can be done with what you have today and a roadmap for the future. Employee selection and pilot programs, often staged rollouts, taking into consideration the cultural impact, the cost, the available support, be it equipment or human resources that are needed to manage such a program. So we can give you the benefit of our experience in working with those things. We also do extensive training. That's a big part of what we do, both employees and managers, what's working, what needs to be done. A lot of it's anecdotal, based on our past experiences working with hundreds of employers here. And focus groups and surveys. What's working, what may need correction, what is the impact on the organization as a whole, and the individuals and coworkers. So, are you telework ready? Well, these are the kinds of things that we would address in our consultations and work with you to define and identify to prepare for your success. Choosing the right people, the right jobs, portable tasks, ensuring the right work site, including the technology, identifying concerns of affected groups and addressing these in meaningful ways. Change is a big part of this process, so we help you work through that process and help your managers embrace this new style of work. Use clear and regular communications that explain strategy, acknowledge challenges openly, and celebrate telework successes. So let's look at a few facts that are commonly discussed when we're talking about teleworking First, we'll talk about how do I know employees are working. Well, today's technology allows for a degree of monitoring for certain job tasks. However, most jobs that we're looking at today involve deliverables and setting a timetable that all agree is reasonable. Most managers we speak with understand that simply because a person is in an office is no guarantee that they are working. That can be applied not only to remote work, but people who are working in your office so that you're not managing to a different process when the individual is working at home or working in your office.
Patrice?
Yes.
Just as a contrast with that, I've often heard the criticism, if I can't see them, reach out and touch them, I don't know they're working. But how many times do we call a coworker who is known to be in the office and we get voicemail?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so they may be right down the hall, but in a sense there is still that separation.
Yes, absolutely. Really, managers report that their teleworking employees are the ones that they have the most success getting when they need them, as you mentioned. There's not a lot of water cooler time when you're working from home, so you're working. One of the greatest challenges that some teleworkers may have is disconnecting from work, pulling back and not always being, continuing to work too long. So the other thing is how will I reach remote staff? Well, we find that phone, email, text, and chats are the most common form of communication. And as part of the process, employees agree to being available during normal work hours. And as I said, in fact, most managers report that their teleworkers are the easiest to reach. How do I select the right employees? Typically, it's based on work history and performance. We can provide you with a manager's checklist of things to consider. Trust is certainly the first on the list. If your gut says this is not the right person, then perhaps that they need to be considered at a later date. Ability to do the job with minimal supervision, technical competency, sound judgment, good communication, and organizational skills are all additional factors as well, too. And do we or does your employer inspect the home office? Well, employers have the right to, but most choose not to. Asking instead that the employees perhaps submit a photo of their workspace to be kept in their file. One thing to be cognizant of, though, is we do have ergonomic standards that we can offer, and we certainly make that a big part of our training. And we make employees and their managers aware that they should practice smart ergonomics in their workspace, keeping cords, open drawers, etc., free and accidents out of the work area. That's certainly a consideration. So,
Patrice, it's interesting. I recall years ago OSHA had proposed a program for reaching out and conducting inspections at remote work locations like people's homes. And I believe it was in response to an outcry that was deemed too intrusive into people's personal lives. They backed off on that. But nonetheless, the same standards still apply. As you're alluding to, if ergonomic standards are not respected, someone could develop a soft tissue injury like carpal tunnel syndrome while working at home, the same as they could while working in their office. So it is wise to do that type of analysis.
Yep, absolutely. And does the employee need to telework 100% of the time? And what does it cost to set up teleworking? Well, most of our programs are part-time. There are full-time programs, but the greater majority of them that we work on are part-time or regular schedule. So what does it cost to set up teleworking? It can be done relatively inexpensively. Oftentimes the equipment that you're using in your office is portable. It's a laptop. It goes home with you. So there's no additional cost. There might be some licensing fees, additional licensing fees, but those are typically very minimal. And really what we find, and we do have a cost-benefit analysis link on our website that an employer can go in and really work with their own live numbers. You can use our very conservative defaults, or you can take the live numbers and work through it. But what employers come back and tell me, and you can see it by benefit of that plus benefit analysis, is that the benefits of the increased productivity, the reduced absenteeism, the business continuity, and in some cases, reduction of real estate or parking issues or avoidance of those, more than offsets any cost of additional equipment or a laptop or a scanner, any type of thing that a person might need to have at home. So we're going to go now to some Q&A.
Okay. Any sense of limits on the number of individuals that a company could have?
Well, that's a good question, Mark. We find that most organizations look at maybe 20%, but, you can look at a company like Aetna that has almost 47%. So it's all what your organization can make work. I think it depends on the work style of the company. Is it necessary to have certain individuals there on certain days to greet clients, as an example? If it's a very heavy call center environment, that would probably increase. Those percentages would increase. So it really kind of depends, but the rule of thumb is anywhere from 10 to 20%.
Okay. Do you encounter situations where two employees might be doing the same job, and that particular job assignment has been deemed suitable or appropriate for telework arrangements, and one worker has said yes, and the other is told no, I'm sorry, not you? Based on you just scratch the surface in talking about who's a qualified employee to be a telecommuter. You've got some folks who are terribly distracted, and some who are just focused as much as possible. So one person you'd say, I never would be comfortable with that person working remotely, but this person, not a problem at all.
Right. Well, that's why we have an assessment. One of the things that we recommend is a self-assessment form. And this has been something that's been developed by our HR people, and most of our companies have used this very successfully. And we actually recommend, when we're going through the planning process with organizations, that they hand these out with a letter that, and again, we can template that for them, but that describes the individual's jobs, and they look through it and they kind of say, oh, maybe I'm not the right person, or maybe I am the right person. And oftentimes the individuals come back and say, I'm not ready for this. This isn't right for me. So this really works as a great conversational vehicle for people. What we have many times is individuals who maybe they're ready today, or they're not ready today, but they would be ready in 6 months with some coaching on their job skills. And that's what a lot of managers find. If it's an individual who is capable of developing the right qualities and has the right performance history, with a little bit of coaching, some of these individuals can be brought into a pilot. We obviously always recommend a pilot, and it may be a phased-in one, so that individuals can have the opportunity to see if it's going to work. Sometimes people want to come back. It may not be the right situation for them, or their home situation may change. As an example, let's say they, I had this happen to me. My husband retired, and all of a sudden I found myself with another person living in my house while I was working.
Back to the office.
Yeah, I said, I'm thinking maybe I could, but I trained him. I did a very good job of training him, and we worked it out. But sometimes your home situation may change, and an individual may want to come back to the office. So that's why we recommend putting an agreement together that says, in the event that circumstances change and the teleworker wants to come back to the office, that they are allowed to. And that can come back, assuming there's space provided for them.
So your assessment process really gives the company a platform to speak from if they have to invite people in or possibly put them off with it based on some predetermined criteria.
Yes, absolutely. And the policy and the agreement spell it out very clearly. Spell out the expectations, spell out the days and the hours that the individual is allowed and or required to telecommute. And they're very good. We've had a number of companies compliment us on how easy this process has made and how effective it is in helping managers manage this remote style. You know, even though it's an emerging style, it's going to be there. It's only continuing to grow, and really managers are well advised to embrace this work style and the style of change.
How often do you find the company is already doing it and they may not even been aware? Because there's approval, but it's not been formalized or managed.
Yes, that's very, very common. And when I hear about it is when there's a problem. You know, it's very common for people to have ad hoc arrangements. You know, this manager says okay to this person because you know, they have personal circumstances that, you know, make it okay. But then, because there is no formal program, employee B says, well, you know, understands that person is working from home on a couple of days a week, and they say, well, why can't I do it? So that's when I get the phone calls, and that's when I say, when I get the problems, that, well, maybe we need to formalize this program. So that's why we highly recommend that a program is put in place with policies and agreements so that everyone is on the same page. The other thing, and I really want to stress this, and anyone who's ever heard me speak says I repeat this over and over again, if you develop a program for business continuity purposes, use it on a regular basis. Don't just use it when there's a snowstorm or a hurricane. You need to be able to, people need to be able to understand the process, how they wire in. It's different. Now, the way you look at something from home may be slightly different than the way you look at a computer screen when you're on a network in an office. The way you answer a phone call when a client calls in may be different. We also typically find that when an individual first starts to work from home, there may be a little bit of lost productivity because, you know, it's unfamiliar. And as you've done it a few times, you get in the zone, and you know your productivity jumps right back up. So, for an organization to really be effective in using business continuity, we recommend highly that you develop a program, use it on a regular basis, at least for your key personnel.
So much of this is dependent on technology. What's been your experience with individuals working remotely from home, for example? Are they using their own computers, or are the companies typically providing them with equipment? And then that raises this, you know, security of data issues.
Yeah, typically we have been seeing, for the most part, we have been seeing the employer provides, or the company provides equipment. And people are dialing in through a VPN or a secure network. Now, that being said, where a lot of organizations are going to cloud computing, that may change a little bit because there's a little more security built right into that. And I'm not going to go too far with that. This is where I would call my technical people and ask them to jump in. But for the most part, the organization provides the equipment. The saying went, the more you own, the more you can control. But as I said, that may change a little bit as things get a little more sophisticated. You also know, I think when you provide your own equipment, or the company provides their own equipment, you're not going to have things downloaded to a machine that's not yours. You're not going to have, you're in control of that environment. So for the most part, our technical people do advise that that's the best course of action to take.
One of the things that usual office policies about appropriate and inappropriate activity on company equipment, company time on the company networks, things like that.
Right, exactly. And one of the things our technology people have spoken about pretty extensively is collaborative tools that an organization can use for productivity enhancement, and we often get questions on that. So there's really a wide range of tools. Conferencing, certainly in the form of audio, web, and video. And we've found some statistics that said 69% of managers say that conferencing is much easier when you have people teleworking. You don't get all that distraction in the background, and the quality of the calls are better, et cetera. Certainly things like email, instant messaging, and presence. Enterprise social networks such as Chatter and Yammer, which tend to be internal. Online whiteboarding services, and most of these are free, by the way, too. Centralized content management, which is cloud-based. And, these are the types of things that our technology consultants can talk about, include in their assessment, or just advise companies on individually as they want to talk about how to make their organizations more productive. And these things can be used whether you're in an office or working remotely, but they're pretty much developed for productive use in the remote working.
And I imagine you've got resources to adapt individuals' own electronic devices, the BYOD movement, the bring your own device to work movement.
Right.
People using their own cell phones, their own notebooks and things like that to segment the software systems in that equipment.
Yeah, most companies have a policy on that. Some organizations allow it, some organizations don't. Our technology people have developed some policies on that, so that if an organization, you can build that into your policy that, they are not allowed to use their own devices for, it doesn't matter whether it's a computer or a cell phone anymore. Some organizations encourage it, other organizations don't. It really depends
or if they're allowed, they can segment the data within the unit to insulate somewhat the company data from personal activity.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So one of the other questions that we get typically is what about social isolation for the full-time teleworker, and that definitely can be an issue. So really what we do, they're kind of basic things, but we advise them to socialize at lunch. It's a great way to do it. Join a walking group, go to a gym. I used to meet a group of people who all work from home. I used to meet them every morning at the dog park for half an hour. We'd run the dogs, chat with each other, and all go home and go to work. And sometimes something it's as simple as stepping out to a grocery store during lunchtime gives people a sense of community. And that, keeping in mind that your commute time is freed up, there's really more time to pursue those personal interests, which is good for us, good for society, and good for the employer. Makes for happy employees.
Do you provide assistance also with, I would imagine this is often an arrangement set up with exempt employees who are paid a fixed weekly salary regardless of the time they actually work, but also with non-exempt and hourly employees who, for whom an employer has a legal responsibility to keep track of actual work hours. Do you assist in documenting working time and recording time, things like that?
Well, we don't on an individual basis, certainly, but we can advise on some policy on that. There are both types of individuals using telecommuting. Again, all of those things are structured within a policy. Any overtime hours must be approved in advance. Similar to what we do you would do in an office environment. Log in, log out at the appointed times through your remote payroll system and or time card system rather. And the critical issue is making sure that you're not working hours that are not approved. That's the critical issue.
And you can always make a comparison between the time logged on and what work has actually been done.
Right.
And so ultimately it can become a disciplinary issue in terms of productivity or performance.
Right.
The same as it would be in an office.
Right.
Do you get inquiries from, certainly, we speak to employer audiences through CBIA, and I would imagine that's probably the majority of the inquiries you get, but do you get inquiries from employees seeking to arrange a telework arrangement?
Yeah, we do. Oftentimes I'm approached by an individual who would like to be a teleworker, but they're not clear on whether their organization has a policy or how they would apply for it, and if their organization doesn't have a policy, how they might be able to go about pursuing that. And, really what I try to do is advise them on best practices so that they are prepared for conversation with their managers. But you can also go onto our website and fill out an employee self-assessment and actually send that along to your managers. And it's a great point of discussion. I know a lot of the organizations that have teleworking in place or teleworking policies, and so I can kind of give them the benefit of whether their organization does or does not if they're not aware of it. And certainly we are happy to contact any of their management or leadership who will be interested in talking to us about our services. So I guess we're going to talk about now some ways that we can start the process here. And there's really 4 ways to get in touch with us. One is weatheranystormct.com. The second is me, which is patrice@ctrides.com. That's our 800 CTrides number, or 877 CTrides number. And certainly CBIA.com can certainly help you on some of these legal questions and point you to our direction for some of these policies, et cetera, should you desire them. So I'm now going to turn this back to Mark for some closing comments, and I hope you've enjoyed today's webinar and that it's provided you with information about teleworking. Please feel free to reach out to us if we can assist you any more in this process. Mark?
Well, great, Patrice. Thank you very much. And I think that you touched on a wide range of issues, and obviously there's a great deal of detail below the surface, particularly with things like manager training, assessing employees, suitability for this, and job descriptions, developing policies, things like that. But all within the realm of what employers are doing day to day anyway, and simply adapting it to a new flexible work arrangement. So I do think that's very timely, given we're so far been lucky with the winter weather thus far. But I like the point you made. Don't wait to start the snowblower when there's 18 inches of snow that you're facing. Do it on a nice warm spring day. Check the gas in the tank, things like that, and plug this system in once in a while and give it a run. See how it works, so that people can easily transition into it when needed in an emergency, but also maybe developing a comfort level with the productivity and efficiency of doing this type of thing. So we don't have any more questions on the board, so I think I'll call it to a close now. But once again, I'd like to thank Connecticut Rides and Telework and Patrice DiFilippo for this. And please stay in touch with us as questions may come up with all the contacts that you had on the screen there. And if you forget those or you lose them, you can always call us at CBIA, and we can put you in touch with the appropriate people for resources on this. So, thank you for attending today's webinar on the Telework Solution, and everyone have a great day.